Hello, welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, as always, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. As for introductions, as usual, my name is John Ruark, past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia, and currently serving as junior warden. I will hand it off to Nick Johnson for his introduction.
Hi, I'm Nick Johnson, past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time, Farmington, Minnesota.
Thank you, Nick. Jason Richards.
Hey everybody, Jason Richards coming to you from an undisclosed location.
Looks like a hotel room.
Looks can be deceiving. Maybe I'm filming a movie, maybe I'm in Hollywood. Probably not. I am the senior warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
And Jason, will you do us the honor of introducing our special guest for tonight?
Yes, I'd love to, John. Everybody, tonight we have a very special guest who's very close to my heart, Masonically and otherwise. It's Worshipful or past master, brother David Hill, past master of Acacia Lodge number 16 in still good old Clifton, Virginia, and the man who is the reason why I am in the fraternity today. So, David, please say hi, and we've already introduced you, so.
Who are you again?
Hi, everybody. David Hill.
You do stuff and things.
Yes.
All right. Feel free to chime in anytime before we get to your topic tonight.
He sits on the sideline and corrects my ritual.
As any good past master should.
Yes.
Silently, thank you very much.
Okay, moving into Masonic news. First and foremost, we want to say that it is March, meaning there are 18 days left until the PA Academy of Masonic Knowledge, and there's still chance to come over and see all 5 of us in Elizabethtown. If you want to register, go to pamasons.org/academy, and you can go down and see all the details of where to register. I'll tell you the answer right now. AMK secretary at pagrandlodge.org. Let them know your name, address, and lodge number, and telephone, so they can get in touch with you, and make sure you bring some money for lunch. A $10 lunch will be served, and there may be some Masonic items for purchase while you're there.
And a Masonic party afterward, perhaps. And actually, if you aren't a Mason, no problem. Just email the secretary and let them know you're coming, and we'll be good to go.
That's right. All of our topics will be open for the public, which is something we try to do on the show anyway, just to promote the fraternity as a whole. We are also working on getting the whole entire day able to be streamed live, just like we do with this show, live on the internet, and then that'll be, of course, archived. So if you miss it for whatever reason, we've had a couple guys say, oh, I got a district event here, or I've got something over here. Well, now you don't have an excuse. You can watch it later, but we'd love to see you in person.
In addition to the 5 of us, we will have some special guests from the show in shows past dropping by. Brother Paul Chamberlain, past master, and possibly Brother Botts, worshipful master or past master as well. So
Charles Harper said he's going to maybe make an appearance, and there might be some other people that you've interacted with on our Facebook page. So you got that to look forward to.
Yeah. As well as us. I mean, who doesn't want to see us, right?
And Nick Johnson.
Ooh.
But we are seriously excited. We have some great presentations lined up. I'm working on something that has never been done before, and I'm very excited about showing you the results of some first-time research. So stay tuned, and hopefully it'll be groundbreaking. But that's just a little tease.
we're going to try to have a more full agenda up on the Facebook page here within the week.
Mm-hmm. Anything else we want to say about the PA Academy of Masonic Knowledge? Hearing nothing, let's get into the really hot topic that dropped right after our show last week, which is that
Nothing happened.
nothing at all happened, at least a year from...
If you are a Mason in Tennessee, nothing happened because you're not allowed to talk about it.
Talk about what? That's right. The Grand Master of Tennessee has suspended the gay brother who was previously talked about back in September, I believe, where he was being brought up on charges for unmasonic conduct. He, as it stands now, as to understand, he is suspended, not expelled, and that Tennessee is about to have their annual communication, meaning their once-a-year Grand Lodge event, in March, so it should be later this month, where supposedly there is a resolution on the table to discuss and amend their constitution, so that way they strike the term homosexual from their code, so that way it makes the laws more open, and it makes this whole thing hopefully go away. Hopefully that means by doing so we'll restore this guy into full standing. What do you guys think about this? There's been a ton of swirl on the internet. What has come to mind of what you've seen and heard?
Well, I'm all about due process, but the brother sponsoring the amendment to the Constitution is the same brother who is currently suspended.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, which presents to me a bit of a conflict of interest on the part of the Grand Lodge of Tennessee. The other issue that I think is deeply concerning is the threat of suspension that Tennessee Masons are under. Should they be caught supporting this brother and his partner, or voicing their support on social media or other forms of oral communication? I see that as a good move for a totalitarian autocracy, but not so much for a very, very prominent and revered fraternity.
You know, we've talked about that in the past, that Master of the Lodge is really a benevolent dictatorship, and that extends at least twice-fold for the Grand Master within the sovereign state. But as we've mentioned also before, one action is no longer in a vacuum, and that you cannot unring a bell, as Robert would say if he were here. So this is out, and fortunately...
It's been picked up on national level media.
Yes.
Yeah.
Been picked up on their local Tennessee news, and then that got picked up by NPR.
Yep.
Now, refresh my memory, guys. What is the reason that the Grand Master? What's his excuse for
So,
doing this?
according to the Tennessee Code, there is of things that define unmasonic conduct. One of them is to cohabitate and to promote in homosexual activity, and also to have fornication.
That's right. That's right. And now I'm curious, how often has that been held to with straight brothers who cheated on their wife or jacked up? I mean,
Yeah.
We are still...
I'm hearing a rate double standard here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem with it. Not even so much that it's in the code. Yes, that's a problem. But the fact that it is not being, the code itself is not being enforced unilaterally.
Yeah.
It's being cherry picked.
Yeah. It's being applied without equal protection for everyone there. And what really bothers me too is that, at least, I was interested, David, with your... I was going a different direction, which is what part of the code of Tennessee actually allows the Grand Master to essentially quash all discussion. And that's what frightens me even more, is it's not so much this is already in their code, and I'm sure this is something from the 50s or something, or even earlier, who knows. But, it's the fact that there was a quashing going on. And, just like as John has said before, the Streisand effect, you try and quash something, it's just going to echo and echo and echo, and everybody knows about it. NPR picks it up, and that's what happens. It's like just work it out via due process and get it done that way. Don't be stupid.
But I think the fraternity, this issue is kind of forcing the fraternity to be on the precipice of something big, I think, because we're seeing the Grand Lodge of California that has come out with a statement condemning the actions of the Grand Lodge of Tennessee and Grand Lodge of Georgia, at least implicitly. And then, according to Chris Hodap,
one other one too. Also on February 26th, the Grand Master, I almost missed this myself. The Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Utah made a statement to all Masons in the state, and it's amended on Hodap's blog as well, where basically, Utah's doors are open to any good man, regardless of faith, ethnic background, race, and so it doesn't matter what your sexual preference is either.
Well,
and that's go ahead.
I was thinking the 40,000-foot view, the 8-mile-high view that I'm actually seeing in this is that we're starting to see this separation within Masonry, and you would have thought that at some point in time a female, a woman would have applied to get into a lodge, and that would have been, but it's really the issue of gay brothers, and essentially what you're seeing is a corralling and a grab the wagons and circle them in a few states, and then the rest of them saying, well, what are you doing? And I fear that there's going to be a schism or of some kind of thing, because there's this what is Masonic morality question that's out there, and it's going to be a question that's going to be answered either by recognition being withdrawn or something else, and so we're coming into a new era, brothers, and it'll be very interesting to see how these cards get played, because we are seeing a very distinct separation between a lot of grand jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we've got the Grand Lodge of D.C., which issued a similar statement to Utah back last year, when this started percolating with a bit of fervor back in September. We have rumors of other states in the South, or another state in the South, possibly introducing
Actually, quote that Mississippi in March
Yep.
consider a resolution to change their petition, which will add the question, are you a natural-born heterosexual man?
Yeah,
What's that even mean?
Yeah, that's. I think we're seeing ripples here of something that is going to dramatically change the way the fraternity looks in 5 years, maybe even fewer. If you read, I encourage all brethren to go and read the Grand Lodge of California's statement, because it not only talks about, at least implicitly, about sexual preference, it also talks about women in Masonry. So you'll all want to take a look at that, because I think that's something else that we're going to have to really come to a head working on, or at least dealing with over the next decade, definitely.
So that happened. There was a lot going on this week, but it's good to see. It's refreshing to see Grand Lodges come out and make public statements. Grand Masters in particular. I'd hate to predict that it will come down to pulling recognition as a form of, a line in the sand. West Virginia's pulled recognition for less, so it's certainly the most political move that a Grand Lodge can do in order to show where they as the fraternity stand. Now, unfortunately, that impacts all of the guys in that affected state, right? So a good comment I read online was that, let's just say someone pulls recognition from the Grand Lodge of Tennessee. Well, the brethren who are trying to fix it from within are now a little bit more disabled that they won't have the travel access rights and intervisitation and all that they normally would to talk to like-minded brethren.
But the question is, how malleable is that code, and what safeguards have been put into place by the current Grand Lodge officers in Tennessee to prevent that from being changed at the grassroots level. And I think that's something that's concerning, because if you have a generation gap in Masonic membership, like we talked about with our generation gap episode, then you might actually see that the code really can't be changed until there's a turnover generationally in Masonic membership. And I think for a lot of brethren at this stage in the game, waiting that long is untenable.
Anything else you guys want to chime in with before we move in to the next topic?
It'd be great if we could just all get along and think of Masonry as a fraternity, of men under the fatherhood of God, vice under the specific religion that each one of us may or may not ascribe to.
Mm-hmm. Good point. With that, let's move into the Masonic Tuesday question. Nick, what are we? What are we?
On Tuesday?
Masonic Tuesday question on
Tuesday. Someone forgot his podcast mic.
What?
What are we?
We are Masonic Wednesday question, because it'll be going out Wednesday. I've been moving, so if you're trying to figure out what has been going on with little old me, it's because I've been moving, so the questions haven't been coming out as fast as they should have. I've been a very bad boy.
But you've had better internet access.
Oh, this internet! Let me tell you, you guys can see my my beautiful face. So.
Oh, hey Nick, you didn't mention anything about what you did this weekend.
What did I do this weekend?
You jumped into something.
Oh, hold on now.
Yeah, before we get to the Wednesday question.
See that? That says polar plunge. That's what I did. I jumped into a frozen lake, and I raised, I don't know, what was it, $400 and some for Special Olympics. So all the swag that they gave me, my hat, and because of contributions from our listeners, I was able to raise that much money. So I want to thank every single one of you for helping out. With that, I will get to the question. I did have it up, and I'm trying to figure it out. But let me get to the answer from the last one. So the last one, I'm not going to say anybody's name because, well, again, I've been a naughty, naughty boy. But the answer was Robert Livingston, who was a member of the original and no longer existent Union Lodge of the Grand Lodge of New York, of which he served as Grand Master for a number of years. I know some of you were saying St. John's Lodge number 1, which sort of kind of was sort of correct, but sort of not, because he had the Bible from St. John's Lodge number 1 for George Washington to swear on, but he did not have the actual Bible. So, good job, guys. I'm glad that you guys did an awesome job. And so with that, we're going to focus on Anderson's Constitution, of which I'm sure many of us are distinctly aware of. And with this one, I'm going to ask the question for the week of, what is this, the 29th? Dr. Anderson discusses the Noahide laws. Your question, what were these Noahide laws in Anderson's second edition of the Constitution? How many were there, and what were they?
And I know the answer. And if you come to Pennsylvania, you'll find out the answer too.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to be talking about it.
Sweet.
Or just wait till next.
Or just wait till next week.
But hearing Jason say it is much better.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, if you would like to send your name, your lodge number, and the hashtag, was Nick really prepared for this? Back to you, John.
To what email address?
Hashtag.
MasonicMonday@gmail.com. If you send it to our email address, they will not be making Deadpool 2 with Cable. Instead, they'll be making it with, I don't know,
Harriet Tubman.
Harriet Tubman or nobody. They're just going to have him back again, and it's going to be the same movie. And,
Renee Descartes.
yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you, Nick, for everything you do.
Comic books. There you go, John.
Boom.
Moving on. Let's get into our awesome topic. David Hill is a personal friend and brother of Jason Richards and I, and he has recently served a 3-year tour of duty over in Australia, specifically New South Wales, and he shared specifically with me during my year. Let me pat myself on the back for a second. I
was there too.
Awesome presentation where David Skyped into my lodge, not in a tiled session, but we had an open dinner program and had David Hill Skype in live from Australia to the East Coast of the United States, to which he was our speaker for the evening and told us of some of the differences between what he knows in the rules of the Grand Lodge of Virginia Masonry and then how Masonry is done in New South Wales. Excellent program, well prepared, and I had asked him to come and share his thoughts with you, the listeners, because definitely it was enlightening for all of us there. And we're back at behind the computers again, David. So, David, will you tell us a little bit about where specifically in Australia you were, kind of set the context of New South Wales and how it relates to the continent of Australia, and kind of drill down from there.
Yeah, sure. Start off with the capital of Australia is not Sydney, it's not Melbourne, it is Canberra. And Canberra is within the Australian Capital Territory, or ACT for short. And that's buried within the state of New South Wales. So Masonically, it's the Grand Lodge it's actually the United Grand New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory. And through the magic of, I can find this, there we go, of the computers and internet, I'm showing you a picture of Australia superimposed over the United States. You can see Australia is a pig.
Wow.
And yeah. So here's Canberra is down in the southeast corner, right about panhandle of Florida, if you're looking at the map. And then New South Wales is the southeastern coast. So here's Australia. Western Australia, Northern Territory, South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Florida. So here is a map of New South Wales, and the little tan blurb, that's the ACT. It's a little smaller. The ACT is a little smaller than Ireland, and New South Wales is a little bigger than Texas. So I've got you placed there in the region.
Hey, John, is your mic working?
Yep, mic's working fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah, David's breaking up a little bit. Yeah, so that New South Wales is a very populated center over there. The population of Australia is not centrally located. There's pockets just mostly around the shorelines, and so that is
right. I think of the population in Australia as kind of like a donut. It's all right around the rim. There's almost nothing in the middle.
Okay, so what is Masonry like down there in New South Wales where you were staying?
Well, there's a lot of differences, and yet there's a lot of similarities. It's a way, but aprons, but the aprons were different. The jewels were very similar, but the holding the jewel around the neck was really different. The aprons were a little different. Here, let me go to some more pictures. And this is a brother who is the master. His name is Joe, and he was the master 13, I believe. The lodge that I attended, Lodge Caledonia, number 938. And so you can see the aprons difference, and there are leather, not wrist guards, but something.
Cuffs.
And the sack. And here's a typical lodge room. Did we lose you?
Over here. Keep going.
John?
Keep going.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Cool. Here's a lodge room in Caledonia, and you can see that they've got the Scottish flag up there. Obviously, Caledonia, very Scottish lodge. There's almost always a brother or two in a kilt. In fact, I went out and bought a kilt, and I've worn it to Acacia Lodge a couple times now. Gotten some interesting looks.
Let me stop you there. So, what I'm hearing is that Masonry, at least in Caledonia, is very heavily influenced by Grand Lodge of Scotland. Is that right?
Yes. Well, it's by here. Am I back on screen?
Yes.
Where's my pick? Okay, I'm new to all this. So what happened was Masonry came over with the first fleet practically to Sydney, and they came over with a lodge. It was just it's in a lot of and then other grand lodge kind of they were like, well, the Irish Constitution. And so you had lots of kind of competing lodges with competing rituals. And about the time that New South Wales was officially declared, a kind of a separate colony in 1850s, I believe, the Masons got together and we should have a lodge. They couldn't really agree on what kind of ritual, and they all kind of duked it out from in the 80s. They said, enough of this. Let's form our ritual together that we can agree on. And so they formed the United Grand Lodge, and the emphasis is on United Grand Lodge, New South Wales and the ACT. But later.
Okay, we lost you again.
Irish and Scottish. You lost me?
Oh, you're back now.
So sorry. The ritual, at least in New South Wales, nation of Irish, Scottish, and English ritual.
Okay.
What's that, Nick?
So and looking at that picture that you showed of the lodge room, it looked like it was set up for an emulation style. So with the influences of Scottish, Irish, and then whatever derivative of emulation was there, do they have their own particular ritual? Is it like New South Wales ritual? Is that?
Yeah, they've got their own ritual. It's largely based on English.
Okay.
English emulation.
And then is it standardized throughout that particular Grand Lodge, or are they allowed to pick and choose?
It's standardized throughout. However, every once in a while, Scottish some brethren. They're called the National Flower of Scotland, and they'll do something under the Scottish ritual, a Master Mason degree.
Okay.
So I didn't actually get to see it, but
Okay. And, I was trying to, in England, it kind of, the Royal Arch works in a certain method, where it's connected via chapter, and people are kind of, but not really required to go through that. How does the Royal Arch and then the Mark function, the Mark lodges? Are they do they work closely together, or are they just not the same that way?
I really don't know.
Oh, okay.
I really don't know. Sorry.
Well, it's okay. And so with every Australian state, essentially they have their own Grand Lodge. Is that
Exactly. And even tiny Tasmania, they've got, I don't know, 1,000, I don't know, 40 lodges or something. Yeah, they're their own Grand Lodge.
So, David, were you able to attend any lodges outside of the jurisdiction of New South Wales, or did you? I know you kind of focused your experience there, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yeah. It was all in New South Wales. I know a brother told me how the ritual was a little different from New South Wales going to, I believe it was Queensland. And he was like, I remember him making the comment, wow, all of a sudden, part of our ritual totally makes sense now. Change. Gee, I wish we should do something like that. So,
So what would be
so
the
yeah,
thing that would? Let me kind of hear. What would be the biggest difference that someone who's used to American Masonry per se would see when they would come to visit New South Wales?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. I was just really surprised. I went on temporary duty about 10 years ago and visited Lodge Caledonia. And before the meeting, the steward said, so, would you like something to drink? A soda or mineral water or wine, beer? And I was just completely shocked. Yeah, Lodge Caledonia roll with a before lodge and after lodge, a beer, a glass of wine. The junior warden would wander around. Most meetings are after the meeting with some scotch, if anybody wanted it, or whiskey.
Yes, Virginia is a dry state, so
Yes.
in Masonry, if you're having
Something,
Masonic activity, you are forbidden from having any alcohol allowed to be consumed.
Except at table lodges.
There's always an exception to the rule.
Talk about schism
this is
inducing.
true.
Yes. So David, how about how the lodge room is set up? Would there be anything different that we would see?
The first time you look at it, it looks pretty much the same. And then you really start kind of looking and going, wait a minute, that is a little different. I can go back to the picture here. So you barely see in the foreground at the top, kind of top center, the party. So that's altar. That's the second lodge. The altar is almost all the way up to the master. The table, a little bit of table you see on the left-hand side, that's where the secretary and treasurer sit. And they are almost in the northeast corner of the lodge. And I asked her about that one. And he said, when your lodges are first formed, or built, or first erected, start typically in the northeast corner of the lodge. So, and that's where the daylight is going to hit on the building side. And typically, you're going to have the brother walking in and supplies being delivered and everything else, and the word treasurer. But by the gate, checking off, okay, some of the supplies, and here's something. That's about it that I can kind of come off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. So make sure, because you were breaking up a little bit, let me see if I can summarize what I heard. The G is hanging over the center of the lodge, and
Yes.
unlike Virginia Masonry, like we can just say it from our perspective, where that's usually over the master, and that the altar is much more closer to the master than in the center of the lodge, and that the treasurer and secretary's desks
Yes.
are in a different location than we are familiar with. Right?
What was the
Right.
what was
Exactly.
the little thing right to the right of the altar in that picture? Because I don't think it was the tapers. A little like triangular box almost.
The triangle box.
Yeah, the triangle box.
You don't have a triangle box?
Yeah, the triangle box. Okay. Yeah. I'll talk about that in just a sec. Another thing, that burning tapers are not right around the altar, but in front of the stationed officers, which is kind of different. I mean, it's around the altar, but
it's around.
Yeah, that was kind of different.
Your lodge is so big that when you put the tapers around the altar, they sit around the altar.
Anyone?
Yeah. So here's a now, John, if you look at the altar, I remember looking at that and staring and going, why would they put 101 on the altar? and then after a few minutes, it occurred to me what it was.
It's the Green Lantern.
The parallel
Masons
lines.
have power rings.
And I was like,
So
for those of you playing the home game on iTunes, there's a circumpunct bordered by two parallel lines posted right there on the altar.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of cool. I like that. That's my favorite symbol. So.
Oh yes, yes. I pointed that out just for you. Yeah. So okay, back to the pyramid-looking thing. Here's a close-up, and this is just what this particular lodge did for their working tools. So you can see that is the entered apprentice, and the tool in the middle is the chisel, and that's different from Virginia. And here is the fellowcraft working tools. They're the same. And they are the master. The master, it's the skirt, top to bottom, the skirrets, the compasses, and the pencil. So that was a little different.
Like Tom Skerritt? I always do that with Tom Acousti, so it's a kind of an inside joke that he and I have that, every time we talk about Skerrits, he's like, is that like a strange ferret? And I'm always like, no, it's Tom Skerritt, alien, star.
But yeah, very, very different.
Yeah,
very different.
We normally have.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because we can trace the chisel back as a Masonic symbol back to the exposés of the early to mid 1700s. So I don't know if it was in Freemasonry dissected, but it was at least in one of those early exposés of the ritual listed as a working tool, and somehow through the Preston ritual we use now, it's gone the way of the buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the skirt was a new one on me. I had to go look up. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But it here's a close used. It's an instrument used by operative masons. Sorry, I had a little ritual, so I wish I did. But what it does, it's like a string winder. So you can unwind it, and then you can lay the exact foundation exactly where you want it. It's as true as a straight edge.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's small enough that you can.
I'm sorry, it's small enough that you can what?
You can wand it up the string, and you can put it in an apron pocket.
Oh, okay. Put it in your apron pocket.
Very cool.
Right, and yet it's long enough you can lay out it in time with it.
And I'm sure
that's
there's
neat.
a bunch of symbolism associated with that as well that we won't get into here. But I think it's fascinating that you were accepted as a Master Mason from the States, and yet you would see things that you had never seen before as a Master Mason.
Right.
So
Right.
Freemasonry is universal, but yet at times different.
I know they make lodge art and they're like, look, you just roll however you normally roll in lodge. So I didn't, and their jaws dropped, and they said, that looks like York Rite Masonry. And at first I was confused, but then I remembered Don McAndrews, a fellow brother of ours,
We know Don.
in Virginia practices York Rite Masonry. It's right in the Methodical Digest. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So then does New South Wales do the original Scottish
Original Scott.
degrees?
I'm not sure because I've never been to Scotland. One day, maybe.
It sounds very much like they're running an emulation for
Yes.
the most part, with just like they picked it, at least from how you're describing it. It sounds like emulation is kind of the main base, and then the rest of it is just kind of spices, to make it kind of interesting. So.
Yes, it's definitely more wordy than what we do in Virginia. It's wonderful and nice, but for my, it was like they took Virginia ritual and poured out random sentences attached to each other. So, I mean, I liked it, and there were times where there were whole paragraphs where I was like, oh, that's almost word for word. And then they would do something else, and I'd think, that doesn't show up for 10 minutes. What are they doing?
So obviously they also had Robbie Burns nights, correct?
Yes, January 25th. And that was definitely neat. They'd have a regular lodge meeting, and they try to get through it as possible, and go downstairs, and they'd meet up with their spouses, and it was a big thing. They would have the haggis, and they would ceremonially bagpipe it in and lay it on a table, and a guy would recite from memory Ode to a Haggis, written by Robert Burns. And there you go. And that was the week. And haggis, tatties, and neeps. Tatties are potatoes, or turnips.
That's actually an interesting question. Now they have alcohol there, so you can actually, drink that. And now in Virginia, are you guys allowed to drink while trying to get that stuff down?
Perceptions.
It really was not that bad. It didn't taste much of anything to me. It was just. It really tastes like anything.
The answer to your question from the Virginia perspective, Nick, is that the Burns nights that John and I have attended have been in Pennsylvania.
The haggis.
Haggis is just sausage that needs a little more flavoring.
It needs a little love.
Yeah.
All right, David, why don't you bring us home one more interesting fact or segment before we switch over to social media. So,
Oh boy.
Your presentation could go on for days because there was a lot of good stuff in there. But grab one more thing that our listeners would be shocked or interested to find out about New South Wales Masonry.
Well, there's a lot of singing during the degree work. That was really different to me. I did not expect that. We had a song, and they allowed me to keep mine, and I have it somewhere. And it would say, like, sung to the tune of St. Anne's or something like that, and it was just no help to me whatsoever. But they had a guy who played an organ, and he played very well. He played in lodge, and we would all just sing along, and very different.
Excellent. So if you're ever in Australia, specifically on the southeast coast, definitely check out New South Wales Masonry and all that it has to offer. So with that, Jason, why don't you bring in some of the questions from social media tonight?
All right. Hey, starting off with Brother Mike Hambrecht. What's the officer's line like in Australian Masonry, David? And do they just serve for 1 year term in each chair, or do they stay longer?
Good question.
The officer line is very similar. They do have an inner guard, which I know some Grand Lodges have. Some don't. Virginia does not. And then they do typically serve for 1 year, and it's typically, the up progressive line, and they have an actual position for their immediate past master called, you ready? Immediate past master. And he's kind of the director of ceremonies, and he sits by the master, and he gives him prompts when he needs it. And sometimes, the two will lean over and he'll be like, I wouldn't say it like that if I were you, or, or stuff like that. Kind of the role of the secretary, at least.
It's nice that they don't station him as Tyler. Here is a great picture from Brother Chris Streeper receiving a candidate in due an Australian form. Because that's not a knife. That's a knife.
That's a knife.
You in Australian form.
Very nice.
So interestingly enough, one of our regular listeners, Brother Blake Leach, is actually an Australian Mason as well. And he's not in New South Wales, but he has a really good comment that it's a shame that New South Wales standardized exclusively. Elsewhere in Australia, they have Scottish, Irish, and assorted English working lodges under each Grand Lodge.
Not totally positive, but my understanding is it's standardized. I got around every lodge in the ACT. There were 7 of them. And then I got to 1 or 2 lodges in actual New South Wales. Again, it's all same Grand Lodge. And, yeah, it seemed standardized to me. I don't remember any differences.
And is there any movement to kind of, as all Grand Lodges are dealing with shrinking membership, has there been any movement to, combine jurisdictions? Has there been any push like that at all, or?
Not at the Grand Lodge level that I know of. They're going through in Australia the same thing we're going through in Freemasonry in the United States, is shrinking membership and aging membership. People are just not joining. It's just not a nation of joiners anymore. It was really kind of an Anglo-American or Anglo-world thing for 40 or 50 years. That's just not anymore. So yeah, there are some lodges that are kind of getting smaller and smaller and kind of dying off and combining like that, though. One thing I thought was interesting was that now their district deputy grand master is called the district grand inspector of workings, and if a man petitions a lodge directly, that he'll stay with that lodge if he's elected voted in. But if he goes and sends an email to the Grand Lodge, they'll send it to the local BGIW, who will then look at his petition and go, I think he'd be a good fit for this lodge over here. I think I'll put it over here. And I thought that was interesting.
Here's a question for you, David. How long, generally speaking, does it take to go through the degrees over there? You know?
Well, at least from what I saw, they only meet once a month. And that's my experience in Virginia. We'll do degree as needed. So, I mean, we may have a couple degrees a month in Acacia Lodge. So it's definitely longer.
Okay.
Yeah,
and there are
their stated meetings. What's that?
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
No, I was just, yeah.
Awkward pause. Okay, now let's start bringing this home. Let's start with David Hill for wrapping things up. Final thought of your experience and anything else you want to say.
I had a wonderful time with my mates there. Shout out to Lodge Caledonia number 38. They here, Jim and David and Joe. These were awesome. And hopefully one day I'll get back to Australia.
All right. Thank you, David. Let's switch over to Nick for final thoughts and shameless plugs.
Sure. It's kind of interesting is I've actually had, over the years of blogging, I've had some interactions with our brothers out in the various Grand Lodges in Australia. And the first time was with a Movember type deal. Well, I never grow beards because, well, I don't have I don't have the ability to, really. But it comes in patchy. I'm admitting that now. Everyone can hear that. I have a patchy face. But
I'll lend you some of mine.
Hey, dude, I can glue it on in those different spots, right? But they were so kind and wonderful in the emails and the phone calls and things like that. The brothers out there, as you would expect from everywhere. But what was really interesting is as I got further along, and most of my contacts were in South Australia, Northern Territory, was that I found out about an interesting lodge out there, and that's kind of why I was asking about how the Royal Arch and Mark interact. Is there's actually a lodge in South Australia called Lodge Copernicus number 246, and I think I've discussed it on our show before, but they're a lodge that actually holds 3 different charters from the 3 main grand bodies. And so you are able to go through the 5 degrees of Ancient York Masonry, which would be Entered Apprentice, Fellowcraft, Master Mason, Royal Arch, and Mark Master Mason, and are able to receive all that in a single location. I thought that was just brilliant. I thought it was one of the smartest ideas I've ever heard, and it just seemed like a Grand Lodge that got it, that saw that you need to be able to change and evolve and see things differently and understand time management and understand time as a very, very hard to grasp thing anymore. And so I was very impressed by that. And so I want to thank Brother Dave, Worshipful Brother David, for coming on the show. It was very enlightening, and I'm definitely going to have to hop a plane and get on out there. I almost said train, but then I was like, that's impossible. So
I'm going to drive to Australia.
But yeah, definitely I'm going to have to get out there. So thanks. I have a blog, millennialfreemason.com. Once I'm done with this house moving nonsense, I'm going to get back to it. John?
Thank you, Nick. I know if RJ were here, he'd want to plug his show in a couple weeks. He'll be also interviewing 2 other Australian Masons to get their perspective on, Australian Masonry as they see it. Again, they are probably in a different jurisdiction, so compare and contrast for what you've heard tonight with what RJ will bring to the Whence Came You podcast later on. Also, if you like the show, please don't forget to support us by going to theMasonicRoundtable.com and buy a pin which helps us keep the lights on. So podcast hosting isn't free, unfortunately. So with that, thank you very much. Share with your brothers and friends. And what?
Am I going to get a final thought or shameless plug?
I guess.
Now I don't want to. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching. We had a great time talking to Brother David Hill. David, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you so much for the great source of inspiration you have been in my life over the past 4 years in the fraternity. Thank you so much for being my mentor, opening the door for me, teaching me the catechism and everything. So I am here today because of you, and that's either a really great thing to say, or it's rather damning. So for all of you out there
It's all my
listening,
fault. Great.
David Hill is the one to blame. So, brethren, we hope to
It's
see
all my
you.
fault.
It is all your fault. Brethren, we hope to see you out in Pennsylvania. If you can't make it, spend some time or set aside some time to watch the videos that we're going to have. We're going to have some really cool presentations. John's presentation is going to knock your socks off. It's going to be fantastic, and we're going to have a really good time. So hope you can make it out. If not, we hope to see you soon.
Cool. I was hoping you'd add some value, and you kind of brought a tear to my eye, Jason. So
Yeah. Well, it's allergy season, right?
that's it. Yeah, I got a little something in my eye.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, and hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Keep searching for more light. Have a good night.